Today, on our Check for Business podcast, Cole, our Power Platform developer, and Kelsey, our graphic designer and brand strategist, are joining us to discuss which AI model is right for you. So, we're going to talk kind of high level, not in a technical sense, but a little bit more output rather than the technical architecture, basically. So, Cole, would you be willing to give us just very high level what you would say the difference between the models we're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. I could go into the details of what each one does differently, but I think the most important thing is just trying out the different models. Almost all of them have some sort of free version and just finding what works for you. The biggest one that I can find a difference for is the Copilot stuff is connected to your business if you're using that at your business. So that one's really cool for finding information in your emails or your SharePoint when you're trying to look for stuff like that. But the other ones is really about finding where you like to communicate with it and how it works best for you.
Kelsey, when you're working with these different tools, what do you see as the difference in the outcomes between them?
Yeah, I think we're at a time where it changes weekly. So at the time of
Yeah.
this recording, we're going to go, this is what's going on. The next week, I'll be completely wrong. And I'm fine with that. But I think right away, you look at ChatGPT and you go, this has all of the app integrations. So if I'm looking for something to say, you already had the context, I gave you access to it. Of course, pause and AI governance. Make sure that you're paying attention to what's connected and what's from licensing that you have. But knowing right now I'm using a business license, we have it quarantine, it's not learning off of our data. The fact that it can know, say, my Monday.com tasks and have all of that context means that the output from ChatGPT is just going to know all those things without me having to put it in manually at the beginning. Versus something like Google Gemini, Nano Banana, shut up. Amazing image generation, amazing infographics, everything like that. That's going to know my Google Workspace. So, right, I'm going, that output, I prefer it for things like Canvas mode to be able to work live, see the doc, for things like Nano Banana for images. ChatGPT can do it. It's just a difference of preference in knowing that one has the nice Google easy to use interface. And then I think Cole did a nice shout out for Copilot. Yes, it's also built on top of those models. So, right, little clarification of yes, knowing that one's easy enough for going. It's connected to my PowerPoint. So I don't have to download a PowerPoint, move my downloads folder, put it back up. Knowing that kind of easy little workflow, save you time. And then Claude, amazing for presentations, amazing for coding, amazing for knowing tone. But again, all three can output me, but that's my flavor of how I delineate the three right now.
Absolutely. And one other tool that I wanted to mention is we have these little internal AI discussions every other week here at CIT. And one tool that was brought up is AI Arena. And it's really cool because it shows you what is the best model for each kind of specific use case. So they have the best model for text to image, the best model for reasoning and logic, the best model for coding, whatever you're doing. It's really cool to just take a check because, as I said, it changes every week. And what's cool, it's got the 10 models and they're like going up and down, and you can see exactly which one is the best one for a specific thing at any given time.
Yeah, totally. 100%. Love that because I agree. I'm like, this. It's a vibe. When they say vibe coding, I'm like, yeah, it is that day I'm going to go, hey, I'm going to try this with, again, having the check. We have the internal process that we have somebody internally that you go, can I use this? Is this cool? Here's so proud of this page. And I go, yep, you can test it. You can use it. So just since we're talking to business users to say, yes, go try those. Know that the internet is always also going to side with this. It's easy for you, but to keep the shadow minimum, maybe just document the things that you're creating all these logins for you so you do them. Just send out.
Yeah. With all these tools, and it's hard to decide which ones. So, what is your process, both of you, when you're choosing a tool for a specific task? How do you go about deciding which one to use?
Yeah, one thing that I think is really important with it is just a little bit of trial and error with it. A lot of times when I'm trying to do a new thing, I'll try it on a couple of different of the models where I'll give it the same starting prompt and then be like, okay, what is actually going on with the returns of all of these? And what makes the most sense for what I'm trying to do here? For example, I love ChatGPT anytime I'm trying to have a conversation that I'm just trying to get a sounding board and figure out what makes sense for something that I don't quite understand the best. But I'll try and start with putting that into ChatGPT and Gemini and just seeing how that comes back. And over time, I've learned that I really like that on ChatGPT, whereas I would never do that with Copilot just because I don't like the way that it responds to me. I think Copilot is a little bit over eager on making you sound right. And I'm like, no, I want you to play at devil's advocate and kind of challenge some of these ideas, which personally, just from my experience, I've had a better experience with ChatGPT on that.
Yeah, I think that you make a great point, Cole, of A, trial and error, but B, knowing that the different models have different memory and even your licensing level affects that. My personal ChatGPT, I love it because I don't have to retell it everything. It'll go, I remember that you're gluten-free. So when I ask it for a recipe, I don't have to reprompt it and say, make sure this recipe is gluten-free, whatever. I can shoot a picture of my fridge and go, make me something, and it won't suggest something I can't eat. Knowing that on a business level, there's risk to that of it just building and knowing those things. But that does mean, yeah, when I use Copilot, I go, why don't you remember this thing that I just told you? So that does make a difference of picking which one for which task, right? Is first I sit down and I look at, do I need any backup data? Do I need to feed this any context? Do I need to give it a rough sketch? Because that's going to tell me right away which thing I'm going to try. And yes, I tried different ones, same as Cole, of going, I'm going to throw this in here and just see what happens. But I'm going, is this something that only I need to see? What data? So who needs access? What context data do you need? And what's the desired output and format? Because knowing that ChatGPT, you can download a Word doc, but you can also integrate Word. But Copilot can also do Word. But Gemini, you can do Google Docs. So you're going, what flavor today are you looking for? And then to Cole's point, knowing that each model has, you can give it directions, you can set it up, and then your licensing too will give you those things. I know that somebody internal at one of those AI calls was like, I tell it to rip my ideas apart. Tell me no. You can do those things. Because again, over caffeinated intern. Gladly help you with all of these things, but right, it's when you set up ChatGPT and you can say, what do you want it to call you? What tone do you want? Do you want it to be more creative, more friendly, more straight to the point? So again, what your coworker may see as output may be different than yours just from that alone because you gave it that additional context. So again, yes, I could go into large recipes about all the models and go, here's all the amazing things that you can do, but to go, know what you want first and what you need, and then go in and say, can this model do it, or do I need to upload and type it out and do all these additional things so that it takes me more time to get to that, to the point where I'd be tempted to just do it myself at that point.
Absolutely. One thing that I really like that you touched on is like how it remembers things. And I think that kind of that structure of knowing where stuff is also important to keep in mind because ChatGPT has folders where you can say, this is my project X, and you have several different chats in there. And so then if you need to go back to something, then it's easy to find, right? I have a bunch of like little things that I'm like, okay, I know that this is something that I have to do in Microsoft, and I know it's supposed to be set up a certain way, but I don't remember exactly what it was. And so I go through this process with ChatGPT, and that just goes in the folder, and then I title it like Microsoft Best Practices or whatever. But then I can have multiple of those that talk about different processes and easily find them. Whereas the Copilot, it just has all of those chats, but it also has these agents which you can set up yourself. This is a whole other discussion. I'm not going to get deep into it, but there's a couple that come straight out of the box with Microsoft. You can ask, like, they have a researcher agent, they have an analyst, an analyst agent, and all of these other super specified or super specific things. And when you do those, you can see those prompt histories with that agent. And then, like you said, Kelsey, you can give it that additional context where if you just ask Copilot what it should make you and you're like, okay, I'm gluten free, it's never going to remember that. But if you make the world's simplest agent and you said, you are a Copilot agent, you know that I'm gluten free, and then that's it. Now you have an agent that does remember that. But again, you have to explicitly put it into the agent creation instead of just having ChatGPT know this stuff because of the way that that memory is set up with it.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a very valid point to go. You can make almost any one of these platforms have the same context knowledge. It's just how much work you want to put in and keep up with updating that versus how much do you want to connect to live data.
Yes.
Which is, yes, a whole other discussion that we could go, how do you decision tree whether or not it needs live data? Yes, no. That's a whole other, I could talk for an hour just on that. So I'll a whole bit in.
Absolutely. If you guys can't tell, AI is really big. There's a bunch of different branches you could go, and we'll probably keep talking about it for a while.
Yes, for sure. I think you both touched on two very important things that I also want to call out because we're talking about choosing the right model, but sometimes it's so much more the prompting and the data. Like, what are you starting with? And crap in, crap out, no matter what model you choose. So, how much is that truly changing the outcome for each of these models?
Because you work with me, you've heard me say it can do a lot of things, but what you put it in, if you put in something ridiculous, you're going to get ridiculous out faster.
Yeah.
So even if I had the world's best prompt and it was formatted and all these things, and I gave it a markdown file and it's this beautiful sample file, and I was like, here's the marketing strategy, you would still come back to me and say, that's on our tech stack, that doesn't do that. And that becomes what the world is labeled AI slop. Because then they're going, this is just like, why would I even, this is wasting us more time. I got to go through it, edit it. And I like to think of it as going, if I had to explain to a new marketing team member or an intern, clear directions of what outcome I wanted, what do I need to give them? And what do I need to say? And you can have things like the Prompt Cowboy, right? Help you build out this glorious prompt. Great, 100%. Or you can just ask AI to say, hey, help me build this prompt, help me build this agent prompt. That's another little tidbit. Do that myself. But then knowing that you still have to do that little review step, that little creative process, that little vibing back and forth to say, nope, I'm actually looking for this. Nope, the boss that I'm actually working on for this strategy likes to break it down by task. So I need you to edit this and do it by task. Nope, now I need you to know that we use this in our tech stack. Nope, then I need this data column here. It's going, you can expedite that process if it knew that. If it already knew your living boards and all of your columns, I don't have to tell you that. That's great. But if not, that's the practice and the learning back and forth is, again, just like any creative process. You do it the first time and it takes you 4 hours. Did you document what you did? Did you do a good scientific theory and say, I tried this and this happened? And not that you need to slow down and do all those things, but to realize that with AI, you can at the end of a chat say, okay, I want to be able to recreate this in the future. Document all the steps that I did, the prompts that I gave you, so I can do this better next time.
Yeah.
And because, again, that chat thread has that memory. So even saying, oh, if on a business license, it doesn't know across your entire model, it'll still know that chat thread. And that's the same, from my understanding, across all of the models, is anytime you're within that context window, it will know that thread. But the same way that you're going, oh, I want to create an SOP and I want somebody else to be able to do this, you can just say that to AI. Again, it's a vibe that you see what's up. You go, nope, that wasn't helpful. This next time, and going, that's where storing some of those things, right? Copilot can store prompts, which is great, but it's a difference of going, is it stored in a Word document that somebody has to open another tab, go to it, find it, change it because it was different that time, then go back, and then you're going, when does that make sense? And when does it make sense to build out something like an agent that knows those same instructions every single time? So that when you're going for something like, I'm going to promote TechCon coming up for us in May. Yay. Build an agent for that going, instead of every single time you go, this is TechCon, this is our audience, these are all of our sessions, these are all of our sponsors. If I have an agent that knows that, and there's one document, one source of truth for each of those things, then yeah, between Copilot, between Gemini, between ChatGPT, any of those, you can build out agents to then have somebody sit down and go, where do I park? Or TechCon. And it just knows that. And it doesn't have to go, hey, I'm going to TechCon and here's the website.
Yeah.
Just ask it the question. So again, I think it's getting us going. That ridiculousness, the less ridiculous you make all of the background stuff, the better file structure and the better naming that you get into the habit of doing. That, right, what is it? Slow is smooth. I feel like our services team got that from some Navy SEALs. Somebody look up in the internet and quote me correctly on that. But that, when you're going through it, is going, that's where I remember to go. All of this can do this so fast. And I can try all these models and I can do all these fun things. But at the end of the day, and this is why I like watching Cole do file structures, is because I'm like, I should bunch was
Yeah.
instead of the random naming conventions that
Yeah.
I get when I'm downloading something and not paying attention.
Definitely.
One thing that you touched on that I really is it's all about, I think it's all about three things, right? It's about the context that you give it because it can't answer effectively if it doesn't have the information of what you're actually looking for. It needs to have a very clear question, right? Because if, back to that caffeinated intern, right? If you say, I want you to run 20 miles away from here, it's going to do that. But then it comes back and then, or even worse, it stays out there. You can say, come back. Or it comes back and it's, I nailed it. And it's okay, but like you didn't go north. You only went south. I wanted you to go north. So you didn't tell it that. You have to be really explicit with those directions of what you wanted to do, what you wanted to answer. The last thing that I think is overlooked is the tone of it, of like how you're speaking to it. It will reflect back to you. It's always going to be a little bit more professional, a little bit more eager to help you than whatever your tone ends up being. But when I'm trying to do something where I'm like, I want this really technical thing, or I want you to give me this really structured report, I will give it a really structured prompt. That's where I love like Prompt Cowboy, where it can give me this really robust, here's everything that is the piece that makes this up. But when I'm looking to do more of that sounding board, I will let myself ramble a little bit, honestly, like where I'm just like, okay, so this is what I'm thinking, but I'm also thinking this. I've got questions about these things. And there, I'm not really giving it a solid question for it to answer because I don't want it to just answer me. I want it to be like, okay, so those are a bunch of ideas. What are we trying to do? It sounds like you're trying to do this. And it sounds like you're trying to do that. And then that kind of prompts that discussion that you can have with it. But it's all about that that tone that you're giving it at the beginning, where you're not specifically asking it for that direct question or that specific output for when you're wanting to have more of a conversation sounding board style.
I love your point about a conversation because I feel like too, I've recently been trying out the talking, just where you can, I know ChatGPT, I've tried in ChatGPT and Gemini, so I'll say it's probably in other models, but those are the two that I've tried it in. And while it does feel a little crazy for a hot second, I'm just waiting for my husband to walk in and be like, who are you talking to? And I'm like, just hang out, know about it.
Yeah.
And yes, I like the ones that have British accents so I can feel you're living your best personal assistant life. But it does cause you to have that little bit of a different, that if writing things out, you can't quite, you're like, that's not right. And then you're putting in a prompt, it's adding too much, that you can literally go, I'm trying to make a report about a tool audit. So this was the real use case scenarios. We use Marketo, a marketing automation tool. And I said, hey, without it knowing any of this, yes, it's still in our Gemini workspace, but I'm trying to make, I need to do a proposal for it. What do I do? And we go through and I'll say, what about this? Are there any goals? What's the measurements? Are there any other tools? How are you tracking this? It'll do the questions that I would have to ask somebody.
Yeah.
And knowing that it's just like in real life, it's completely okay to say, I have no idea, make it up.
Mhm.
Or to say, I don't know, don't include that. That it's going to, it'll prompt, there's the shout out to AI hallucinations. To your point, it will try to be helpful, but you can say, if you don't know, highlight the things that you don't know.
Yeah.
Or flag in the same way that you would go, hey, intern, if I didn't give you enough to do it, I want you to tell me I didn't give you enough to do. Don't just do it.
Yeah.
Because it will just do it because it's trying to be horribly helpful, and that's all amazing. But the voice back and forth does. It's a different kind of vibing, but a different sort of practice of using it. And then it does create a voice chat afterwards. So yes, you can see you're rambling, but two, you can go back and see the thread and build on the conversation, because I know it's something for me where I said, okay, so I'm building out this proposal and it says, I'm going to make the proposal. And then I was like, now what? Where does it live? And I did have to go in and prompt it in the chat to say, please make this for me so that I can load it. So knowing right that gets a little bit different, but as you're talking through the use case of saying, hey, I'm trying to draft a proposal or whatever, the other little fun tidbit is you can say, hey, use the principles and never split the difference. So you've been reading a business book. You can literally say, go find all the principles about how to make an argument for that and build it off of that. And it'll be like, yep, I use these core principles and these things. Because sometimes you're listening to an audiobook and you're like, yeah, I'm going to use it. And then you completely forget because you don't handwrite out proposals anymore. So to go, how do I take that inspiration and go, I now have the frame of reference to know to ask for it, but I don't have to remember all of the details myself because the internet has information.
Yeah, and when you're asking at the very end there, hey, we just had this whole conversation, now create this thing, you've just done so much more to build out that context, right? Because now it knows this whole conversation is the ways that you're looking at it, the things that you want it to do, because there's things that you should absolutely be explicit on where you're like, okay, don't use information if you don't know. Do not make something up. But there's also things where it's in that context where it's like, this can be really loose. Like you're just giving it all of this information that is the vibe or the energy of what you're trying to talk about, the main things that are important. If you are talking to it and you repeat the same thing 8 times, it knows this one's more important. Let's make sure we include it, right?
Yep, giving it, the same way that you go to somebody and you go, in this meeting, this is the goal. In this chat, this is the goal. It's always going to go back to that for good or bad. So no matter which model you're using, if you're in a chat and you've been talking about the cat food for your cat, because yes, I am a cat currently napping on my lap. And then I went and said, hey, how do I build out this proposal for my boss? It may randomly go, and also, here's the best cat food. And you're going,
Yeah.
whoa. So the same way that when you chat with a coworker, you can pivot to 20 different tangents in the same chat. And a human will know which thread is what. AI will do its best. It still is great. It'll get real close. But that's the other little thing to keep in mind is Copilot, same thing. It's going to remember that chat thread. So even though it's connected to your 365, if you're asking it questions about one meeting and connected documents, and then use that same chat and you go, no, this other one, it's going to try to find the common thread between those two. And if the only common thread is you got distracted, you may be slightly frustrated with the output.
Absolutely.
For sure. So there were a couple other questions I had just as we're deciding which tool to use, which seems like it's a lot of trial and error. But the business does decide a lot of the tools that we're using when it comes to what licenses do we have, what compliance do we have. So to start off, when there is a business with a sanction tool, we're a Copilot office, and then you have employees who are using ChatGPT, not putting in private data because that is part of the privacy policy, but maybe you're just using it on the side to write an email or do something else with. Why does the gap between what the business thinks is right and what works for the person exist?
So I think because you look at it and you say there's the tool that's paid for and then there's the tool that everybody uses. And it's really easy to look at that and say, why can't people just do it? It's doing the same thing. It's doing the same thing. And going, a lot of times that's not aggressive or a rebellion or saying, I don't care, I like this better because my ChatGPT I made pink. That may influence it slightly. A lot of times it's that little bit of frustration of going, Copilot's so locked down that it's not accessing the data, that it's actually taking you longer. So I would say it's more of a symptom than a problem in itself. And 2, it's not a bad thing to look at your business and go, the marketing team, they need this one tool. Our app dev team may need another tool. While they can do similar things, they're similar, different contexts, different whatever, and going to really understand the why behind each team and go, yes, you should still have an overview of licensing, still have an overview of governance, but it's not a failure of different teams who are using 2 different tool sets. It's just also being a little bit honest with yourself and going, you may be a Microsoft shop, but that doesn't mean that every single user needs the full Copilot license. Look at the benefits, look at the use case, look at who's actually using 365. Because, right, while I have 365 licensing, do I really write that many Word documents? Yes, no, but not as much as other departments. I'm not on customer calls like sales, where having that transcript would be super powerful, great for follow-up emails, all of these use cases that's going. Do you understand the processes and the SOPs of each department first? And if you are noticing a large amount of people not using the tool that you're paying for, why?
Yeah, that kind of audit to start with the use cases, but also auditing as you're going. Is this tool still doing the things that we need it to do, especially as it updates over time, and trying out different tools and doing the free trial and seeing how other things go. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think to your question of why is there that gap, I think a huge part of it is just that it's so new that companies don't know exactly what they should be doing. It's really easy to say, okay, let's give everyone Copilot. And that's not a bad start. It's somewhere to start. We got to get people just using it to see how it feels and what it looks like. And then once you understand a little bit of it, then that's where we should all be questioning, just like Kelsey said, what is the best tool for the job? That's what this podcast is about, or this episode is, when should you use what? And for the different departments, they have a whole bunch of different whens, and they should. So I think it's really helpful to just talk to your company and say, hey, it's really great that we all have Copilot. I think our department, or just myself, should have X because whatever. And if you have a good use case for that, hopefully they listen and they're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. You're going to be more productive than that. That's a better tool for you to do for this specific thing. Awesome. Let's get that set up. Let's get the governance set up around it, and we'll be good to go. But to have the business have to do a full audit of every employee and their jobs and their processes, and then assign a different license to it, that's not going to make any sense, because it's going to be really hard to do. And then they're going to be forcing that on the employee. Like, you don't want to use a tool that someone just said, I think this is good for you. I don't know what your process is, but this one seems the best in my mind. It's going to be so much better if you drive that process and say, here's what I think would be best for me.
I agree. And I think you touched on it beautifully, that those pilot programs for AI are going. You can have fun with AI and you can try it, but if you can define even 2 or 3, this is something that we really want to do with AI, have better sales follow-up emails.
Yes.
Then you can really dig into it and go, yeah, you're not stopping people. And I go, one of the things that I was about coding on the side is something I'm calling AI Chef. And what it does is it pretty much does. You can put in data that has, personal identifiers, things that you wouldn't normally do because it's within a safe tool. But users outside of this tool don't have to have the licensing. I did it in Google AI Studio, but going, hey, give it a prompt. So somebody like our business development team, here's a transcript from my call. And what it'll do is it'll go through and piece out all the personal data and say, here's things that you can't do. Here's a prompt for you. Now you can go put into this public tool. Now you can use it. Now you can test it. Now you can see. And part of that, I have it gamified that you can get different chef levels of each one that you do and whatever. But the idea was to go, how do you answer the question of going, not everybody needs that license. Yes, governance is super important. But a lot of times just create an email template without those personal identifiers is still something that's going to increase productivity. So a piece of that is looking at these models and going, you can go to Copilot in your web browser for free. You can create your ChatGPT with your Gmail login that you created back in high school. And not all of that is leaking out sensitive data. You can do work-related things in those tools. That's okay. But also going, yeah, putting your entire CRM data into the back end of that is context stack. That would be a red flag. Kind of go, would you be okay if this leaked on your website? If the answer is yeah, it's marketing data, people know it anyways. Try it out in the tool, do the things, that's totally fine. If you're going, well, that has somebody's email address because it's a correspondence and it has things about their company, that's where I go, yeah, this is why I coded something that just goes, cause for pause before you do that, with the idea of then practicing and getting into the habit of knowing. By the time somebody pastes a template like that 3 times and saves it, they don't need this extra step anymore. Now they have all of these and they have them saved as drafts and all these things. So going, every model is great. Licensing is a whole spider web of business decisions. Measuring ROI is a whole other discussion. But knowing that there's simple things you can do with the free version of all these models to help you decide and inform these pilot programs that you actually know what you're connecting before just buying it and then going, try it out. And people go, what do you want me to try out? Similar thing, better prompt. Tell them what to try out.
Yeah, love that.
Agreed. I want to make sure we cover everything that you guys wanted to cover today. Is there anything that we missed? Anything that you'd like to touch on as we close out?
I look at each of the different models like an art tool, right? So if I had to use the metaphor of saying I'm making a painting, all of them can put red on a canvas, a paintbrush, a sponge, a colored pencil, a pastel, all of them can do it. But I know in my gut what I want it to look like and which one's going to help me get there. So I don't look at one as saying, oh, I'll never ever use a pastel Gemini because I have quarantined myself to just using a paintbrush with Copilot. And that is all that I'll ever use. It's getting into the habit of going, the more that you practice it, the more that you use it, the more you realize which tools you're comfortable with and which ones get what outcome. So similar thing, it's just a tool. Yes, it can do amazing things. Yes, it can seem like it's sentient. Yes, it can talk back. And I go to ChatGPT and say, girl, and it goes, girl, yep, you're my girly pop now, congrats. It's still just mimicking. It's still doing something for you. So the more that you practice it, the more competent and comfortable you're gonna get. And then the more that these new features, hey, I got a new paintbrush, are gonna feel a little bit less overwhelming, a little bit less like now I have this steep learning curve. So that's the metaphor that's been kicking around in my brain when I think of models.
Really like that. I think the thing that's a little bit scary for people is just not knowing at all like what that tool is going to do. When you're saying that, I'm thinking, yeah, but it's also kind of like you reach into this bag of painter's tools, you pull something out, you don't even get to see it, and then you put it on the canvas. You're like, oh, okay, that's interesting. That was a marker. I thought that was going to be a brush stroke, but that's exactly what you got to do is with that trial and error. It's pull that out, and it's, oh, this one's called Gemini. Put it on the paper, try something, and now you get a little bit more context for what that looks like. And now next time, you're not going to grab the marker when you want to use the brush, but you have to try all of them to find what that brush looks like and what those different textures and feels look like.
100%. And yet it follows that creative process, which I don't know about you guys, but right, it's that I'm super excited. I'm doing it. And then you reach that point in the process that if you've both seen the live action Grinch after he shaves his face and the kid goes, yeah, that's the point in the process that you flat out go, this was a terrible idea. Why did I think that this was a good idea? And then it gets better. And then you go, okay, now I'm proud of it. And now I know. And that's the tell me what I did, tell me what I could do better, document what I did. That you go, okay, you got to get past that point of going, I tried it. This is frustrating. It's not giving me what I want. And you can just ask it and go, this is what I was looking for. How could I have gotten you there faster? And it'll flat out tell you, be like, yep, you should know 1, 2, and 3. And you're going, oh, so you don't have to understand all the technical back end. And it's almost better if you don't. Because if you just ask it, it'll just tell you, I did this because of this. And you'll go, oh, you mean I didn't have to go on 20 different Reddit forums and Google it and go to a technical person and submit a ticket and say, explain this to me? You can literally go, explain it to me like I'm 5. And it'll go, this. And you go, thanks. Moving on.
Yeah, it's just like people in that way where if you ask them, what is your communication style? You're going to be able to communicate better with it. And all you're really doing with these models is communicating with them. And each of them has a slightly different way to do it. So what I really like is I will almost always put in a prompt, gives me a response, close. I like these. I didn't like this. This doesn't make sense. Try again. And then it outputs a new prompt and things are fixed. And I do that however many iterations it takes. And then at the end, I really like to go, okay, so this was my original prompt and we've made all of these changes. How can I tell you what I want in a way that you're going to understand better the next time? And it will tell you, it's okay, structure the prompt more like this. I needed to know this detail in the beginning, and then I could have given you a much closer answer at the very beginning instead of having to do all of this back and forth.
100% building in the interview stage or whatever, just going, ask me additional questions. My favorite is just going, ask me as many questions as you can for the best possible output, and it'll go 1, 2, 3, and you can flat out go, I don't want to answer any of these.
Yeah.
Copilot's great, it'll do it without you saying that. It's baked into that pretty well. But just as a best practice, I don't care what else you put in a prompt. It's really great. And that habit of saying, instead of me assuming that you read my mind, ask me these additional questions, or instead of taking so much time that you craft this beautiful prompt that has all the things and then you hit the hack job stage real early because your first output isn't what you want. You got to go, yep, in order to get past that stage where you feel like AI is just giving you slop, you have to have it critique you and be okay with that and realize that every single time you do it then after that is going to be faster because you learned something, and then you don't feel like you're also giving up your brain space to going, I don't know, AI does it for me.
Yeah, don't fall into that trap. And I love the part about the asking it to ask you questions. I think the best sentence you could have at the end of any AI prompt is, don't answer this yet. Tell me or ask me questions first, because it won't do that unless you are explicit with it, right? It wants to help. It wants to give you that answer right away. So if you just have that one little sentence, don't do this, ask me questions first, you're just going to have a better prompt because it's going to ask those things that it needs to know. And sometimes it'll say, this was really clear. I think I can do this. Are you ready to go? And it's, yep, then great. Show what you got.
Do it.
I love it. It sounds like a lot of trial and error and perseverance is really where we got to. So perfect. That is awesome. Thank you both for joining us today. And I'm sure we'll be back to talk in more details about prompting and building agents and going into a deep dive. So we will definitely be back with more in the future.
Thanks for listening. If you liked today's episode, share your thoughts with us. Like, subscribe, or reach out at info@citsolutions.net. For more, visit citsolutions.net/podcast. We'll be back next week with an all-new episode.